Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Classic Rock Echoes podcast, courtesy of the Squared Circle Maniacs. My name is Johnny Bottles. The guy to my right is Motorhead 711, and he, as you can see by that man cave he's in, he is a classic rock aficionado. And today we're going to be kicking it around. We're going to be chopping up what was the first singles. Remember when you were a kid and you had your own money, or your parents gave you some money if you were fortunate enough when you were 7 or 8 years old and you had a stereo to play it on. What was the first 45 single? You remember those things? They were, black, round, had a big hole in the middle. You had to put that little adapter. What, you got one there? Don't tell me you got one there,
Yeah, you
bro.
got to put, one of these guys. Anyone? Bueller.
That is amazing that you have a bag of those things. That's fantastic.
I
love it.
Borrowed them from my aunt and uncle's house when I was a younger guy when they were moving, and they said they didn't want them anymore, so I still have all those little bastards.
That's fantastic, man. You gotta love it. I had a shitload of those things when I was a kid because I had the stereo. It was an Emerson stereo. I think I got it from Radio Shack, and it had the little. I didn't use the adapters at first. They gave you that little black rectangle that would fit on top of your spindle, and you set the 45s on there precariously. And 9 times out of 10, when one's dropping down to play, as the needle moves over, 2 would fall instead of 1. That was the beginning, folks, of a playlist. You made your own little playlist with your 45s.
Absolutely.
You remember that. So after I damaged so many 45s as a child, I decided to go, what are those things called, Motor, by the way? The yellow adapters that would fit in the center of
I always call them because Chickwick. Chickwick was the name of an album or album company. But they're, these guys, Pickwick. We called them Pickwicks when we were kids.
Okay.
Because it says Pickwick right there. So technically, I've heard other things such as snap-in rounds or dead wax adapters, because the dead wax is the part of the record that goes to the end that's right by the label where it doesn't play. So, that's what we would with Pickwick, the Pickwick adapters.
I just got education about the mechanics of a turntable playing a 45.
Crazy that I have some still bottles, right? That's I mean, who else has that? It's I am such the collector of shit, of things that people throw away.
Do you still have 45s? Do you have 45s there?
Oh, I have a lot of 45s, yes, sir. Still with the sleeves. I got a ton of 45s, man. Probably 300 or 400.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
And everything from Elvis that I got from my parents, and the Beatles to Toto, Def Leppard, and Bonnie Tyler, believe it or not. I got a bunch.
That's amazing.
So, and I know you as well. We were talking earlier. You were a collector as well back in the day, and we were talking the price. Remember how much a 45 cost back when you go to the store, a Payless or a Kmart, and they had the section of records and tapes, and then they had the little section where they had the 45 sit out there. Do you remember how much it was for your very first 45 you ever bought?
I'm trying to remember offhand. I don't know at the time if they were 3 for $1 or 2 for $1. I used to go to a supermarket chain called EJ Corvettes, and that was right by the house. I walked to it. I could see it from my house. That's how close I was to it. So they trusted me to walk up there. And I'd go up to the 3rd floor where they had all the electronics and TVs and all that. And they had the big a music department where your 8-tracks, and then when cassettes came out, you had I'm old. Your cassettes would be there. And you had your 33 and a third RPM, which is known as the LP. The long player.
Long play. Mm-hmm.
And they had the 45s. And what they had was the Billboard Top 40. And it was printed out, and everything was highlighted, so you could see it better because it was pretty high up for a little guy. And I'm looking at it, and they had all these cubby holes underneath. 40 cubby holes where the singles would be,
Yeah.
and they would be marked numerically as you could go right down the line and sample them. And as soon as I got some money together, I might as well add this too. They had an oldies section for 45s because back in the day, let's say if this is 1975,
Okay.
you could go into the oldies section right there where they had oldies 45s. They were marked down, they were cheaper, and 9 times out of 10 there would be a side and an A side, not an A and a B. You'd have 2 hits, one on each side, by the same artist or a different artist if they were a one-hit wonder. So I picked up like Remember Walking in the Sand by the Shangri-Las. I picked up Lightning Strikes by Lou Christie. I picked up I picked up a ton of those things, man. And I think the Lou Christie one was Lightning Strikes and Two Faces Have I was on the flip side. Awesome. And then I picked up, because I was kind of, I don't want to go making a big investment for an album when I was a child. I figured I'll buy the hits. And if I hear something on the radio that's another hit, I might buy the album. So I picked up Bachman Turner Over, or as the correct pronunciation, we've been pronouncing it wrong all these years. In an interview, Randy Bachman said it's Bachman Turner Overdrive.
I did the same thing. I always called it Bachman Turner Overdrive. And I had several BTO albums and 8 tracks that my parents bequeathed to me. Thank them very much for that. But yeah, Bachman. And took me this many years to realize that that's how he pronounced his last name.
Yeah. That was a shocker to me, too. And, well, when that took place, I bought Taking Care of Business back with You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. And I thought I was the cat's ass. I said, man, I scored a big hit with this. This is great. I got 2 great songs on 145. And I played it. I played it so much that it sounded like roaches were wearing ice skates and skating on it at night. That's what it sounded like after I got done with it. It was the shits. It really was. But I enjoyed it. I played the hell out of them until I couldn't play them no more. And then I even, I made cassettes. I finally got a cassette deck. I made a mixtape. My first mixtape of all 45s. We all did that when we were younger.
Of course, man. That was do you remember the days of waiting on the radio station? And you would sit there all day long with that button to record a song with a blank cassette. Oh, here it is. Boom. And you got it. When it was done, you're like, yeah, I got the tune, man. I got it.
Right. Absolutely. And I would be a little embarrassed to tell you what the first 45 I ever bought was.
Okay. This
you want to go first? You have your list, I'm sure. What was your first 45?
Don't hate on me, you guys.
I'm not hating because don't hate on what I'm about to tell you. So you just go ahead.
The first 45 I ever purchased as a little guy, this was a few lawnmower jobs, was Flock of Seagulls. I ran so far away.
That's a great tune.
And the B-side was Photograph. If I had a photograph of you, that was the B-side. The first one that I ever was given, my dad gave me, and it was Steppenwolf, Born to Be Wild.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, that was so.
Very
that was
nice.
The first one I bought was Flock of Seagulls. Bottles. How about you? What was the first one you purchased?
The first one that I ever purchased was a song that was written by a member of the Beach Boys, but it wasn't a Beach Boys song. A guy named Bruce Johnston, who was a fill-in keyboard player for Brian Wilson when Brian took a sabbatical from touring. They hired Bruce Johnston. They hired a lot of session guys. Glenn Campbell was probably the most famous one they hired. Back in their mid-'60s heyday, Brian didn't go on tour. Glenn Campbell stepped in. And Glenn played bass for the Beach Boys and sang the falsetto parts, believe it or not. And when Glenn became a big star through the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour and Gentle in My Mind, and by the time I Get to Phoenix, there were his 2 inaugural hits, Bruce Johnston stepped in. Now, Bruce wrote a song called I Write the Songs. We may know that by another artist.
Barry Manilow.
Yes, indeedy. And I thought that song was the cat's ass when I saw it. I heard it on the radio in mono in my father's car. And I said, man, that's a good song.
Yeah.
And he wrote that in 1975. And it was on his album Going Public, his first solo album he ever did, from 1977. Captain and Tennille recorded it before Barry Manilow, but the version they did wasn't released by the record company as a single, and Manilow did it, and he released it in late 1975. I think it was December of 75 when Manilow released it. There's another guy who actually put it out as a single before any of these people. And that guy was the star of a TV show in the 70s. He was a teen idol. And I know you've seen the show, and I've seen the show, and everyone out there has seen the show. Famous sitcom. The show was based on the real-life exploits of the Cowsills. If you remember the Cowsills, they were a family band.
Yes, they were.
Mother and all the sons and the one daughter. And they played pop rock, and they were pretty good band for bubblegum music.
Precursors to the Partridge Family stuff.
Yes, and you just hit the nail on the head, brother.
Cool.
It was a Partridge Family. David Cassidy released it from his solo album, The Higher They Climb, which was produced by Bruce Johnston. So Bruce said, "Hey, I got this song. Let's slide it in there. Maybe it'll be a big hit for you, and I'll get the publishing." And it reached number 11 on the UK charts. It didn't do anything in the United States. Of course, the flip side of that that single by Cassidy was "Get It Up for Love."
Dude,
I don't know what he's trying to tell those young girls, man.
Oh, she had a poster. My sister did of David Cassidy in her room. Leaf Garrett too, but
a lot of young girls did that.
Oh my gosh, man! Teen Beat magazine, what was it? Tiger Beat, Teen Beat, always the tabloid magazines for the younger girls. They were all over the place, and my sister loved David Cassidy. Thought he was just awesome. Hey, them tight pants that dude wore, Jesus age. There's only a certain type of people that can pull that off,
The satin bell bottoms is not an easy look to pull off. No. I burned all my pairs of those. So, yeah.
And we used to call those bad boys street sweepers. The satin,
really?
The noise. They were louder than the denim ones. The satin ones or the polyester ones made a lot. So we called them street sweepers when we were little guys. Oh, he's got some nice street sweepers on, man.
What I liked about I Write the Songs is the way the whole thing started out slow, and then the strings slowly kicked in, and he had that voice, that melodic voice, a smooth voice. Manilow did.
Very smooth.
It was heavily compressed in the studio, but they didn't have autotune back then. But the guy had a great set of pipes. And it was almost operatic the way it built to a crescendo at the end.
Sure.
And Manilow said, the problem with the song is that if you don't listen carefully to the lyrics, you think the singer's singing about himself. It could be misinterpreted as a monumental ego trip. Now, Clive Davis, who was the president of the record company Manilow was an artist for, Arista Records, famous music mogul back then.
Clive Davis, legend.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And he recorded it from, it was the first single from his album, Trying to Get the Feeling. And Trying to Get the Feeling was a hit, too, for him. Not as big as I Write the Songs. She couldn't compete with that. And Bruce Johnston said that the I in I Write the Songs is God.
Wow. Dude, hey, you just educated me, Bottles. I had no idea. No idea, man. That's awesome, dude. Seriously. Wow.
A lot of people thought that he was writing that song about Brian Wilson.
I thought that my own self when he wrote that song. I thought it was about Brian Wilson. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He had to clarify it. What's another one? Shoot me another single that you bought when you were a kid.
Okay. Golden Earring, Twilight Zone. One of my first ones. Love that band. Love that song.
It's 2 a.m. and the thrill is gone. And I don't know the rest of it.
The video's even cool.
the video was cool.
And remember the video, they banned it. They banned it because of the gun scene where he gets shot. Boom, when the bullet hits the bone, it goes boom, and it shows the bullet go. Love that. Love that single.
While we're talking 1975 Motor, they had their first hit in 1975, Radar Love.
No, fabulous, dude. You're driving across country, boom, push play, hit Radar Love. There you go.
And you're rolling. You are motivating down the road. Yeah. You are motorheading 7-Eleven down the road. That's what you're doing. Listening to Radar Love. I love that damn song when it was on the radio. And it was pretty long, too, the album version with the which
I like better, yes.
Which I did like better because they had that dual guitar battle in the middle of it. Or close to the end.
Yep.
Right before the fade out, they were really going for it. But you didn't hear that in the single version of it. They cut that out. Because back in the day, folks, singles were 3 minutes. The record company said no one's going to play a 6-minute song on the radio or a 7-minute song. And
absolutely correct.
We got some comments, guys. We got one from Scud, the college radio station had a metal show. I'd record that all the time.
Absolutely. Scud.
Yeah. And that bass line hits on Radar Love, and we're cranking it up. Absolutely. What a great tune.
Yeah, Larry.
What a great tune. And they
chimed in with some stuff too we can talk about just for a quick second. He listed like his first album that Larry bought, Led Zeppelin, and then first cassette was Metallica Kill 'Em All.
Nice.
First cassette. So kudos to Larry. There's also a couple of the guys in the group that were saying that the 45s that they bought, they still have. And I hope they chime in because we were talking earlier. And I'd like them to present that to us so we can see it, because some of the 45s they bought, they're a little, no, it was music. It was the 80s and 70s. So they're all spread out. Let's put it that way. The musical landscape is completely spread out. So, and that's on a little side note, one of the best things I love about music is the diversity and where you can go with it. It's just put the car in drive and let's go. There's so many different things you can tune into. And I was always the type of person, probably like you, Bottles, that if I heard a song, regardless of the genre, and I liked it, I went out and bought the single. It didn't matter what it was.
A good song's a good song.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. A good song's a good song. The kids nowadays, they don't know what we went through, what we enjoyed when we were younger. Because back in the day, Top 40 radio consisted of, and I know for me, in the mid-'70s, Top 40 radio consisted of, this is what you would hear on the Top 40 radio station. You would hear Radar Love, Golden Earring. Then you would hear A Boy Named Sue, Johnny Cash. And then you would hear The Summer Wind by Frank Sinatra.
Oh!
And then you would hear a random song by Leonard Skinner. A random hit that they had at the time. I don't want to pigeonhole myself in 75, but whatever they had out in 75, you would hear that single. Then you would hear Runaround Sue. And then you would hear a song, you would hear Stairway to Heaven. You would hear a Motown song, like Reach Out, I'll Be There by the Four Tops. Then you hear You Keep Me Hanging On by the Supremes. And then you would hear Feel Like Making Love by Bad Company. It was so diverse. It was a mixtape of all these different styles and maestros, if you will, of music at the top of their game back in the day. And it was all about production. They did do it on computers, guys. You had a drummer who was caged up, or he was in another room, and then you had the string section in another room, and you had the bass player and the guitarist in one room and the keyboard player. And the singer would be in a bathroom of a house, and they would just go ahead and they would record in houses. They would rent out old houses and record it and turn it into a vacation. Zeppelin did it a lot. The Stones did it a lot. Queen did it.
Queen did it, yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. There's one from Scuddy, Loves Running Around Sue, She Breaking My Heart.
Attaboy, Scud.
Dion was a great singer. He was a great vocalist back in the day. A lot of times he rose above the songs that he was forced to sing by the record company. But he was great. Drip Drop, Dada the Prima Donna. That's a great one. Look that up. If you've never heard that
Sunset
before.
Superman, still one of my all-time faves, baby.
No, that's Donovan you're thinking of, not Dion.
Oh, Dion. I'm sorry.
Dion DiMucci, who I might add is still alive. He's still alive in his 80s. He still performs on stage and plays guitar. It's amazing.
Those guys.
Another great guy.
He hung out with Dion, Frankie Valli.
He hung out with everybody.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
He hung out with everybody.
Yes, sir.
He did a tour. This is who was on tour. This who was on tour with Dion back in the day, in the 80s. It was Dion, Steve Cropper, Duck Dunn from the Blues Brothers band. They were the guitarists of the rhythm section.
Also with Booker T and the MGs, guitar player, bass player, awesome.
You had the horn section from David Letterman's band, from Late Night with David Letterman. Nice. And they were backing up Bryan Adams and Dave Edmunds.
Oh.
And Dion.
Wow.
Dion would come out and do like 5-6 songs. Dave Edmunds would come out and do 5 or 6. And Bryan Adams would come out and do 5 or 6. And then at the end, they would do like a jam where they would all sing a song.
Wow.
Donnie Graves says, Dion is a Colorado head coach. Talk about that tomorrow, Don Graves. I think you got the wrong Dion. This is Dion DiMucci. And Larry said, shove a bunch of foam in a closet and stick a mic in there and record that song. That's the way they did it back in the day.
They did. Egg cartons, anything they could to muffle that sound and get that right acoustic. That's exactly what they did. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, back in the Sun Records days, all the old songs with that Elvis, Johnny Cash, Orbison, Jerry Lee did, all recorded in one room. Everybody was in one room. And it's all how the producer and the engineer mic'd the room, how they placed the microphones around to get that particular sound.
Guys were brilliant. Those guys back then, man, they turned goat piss into gasoline real quickly. What they learned how to do, what they had learned how to do with the equipment, and some of the sounds that they had back then. You put on the old records, the old 45s, the old vinyl, the old 33.5s, and you listen to it, and it's like, damn. Even the digital stuff that they remaster and they put in that type of form, analog, doesn't match the same sound. It's just it's rich. It's got depth. It's just this rich tone, and these guys knew how to master that, man.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm looking up. I actually have a picture. Oh, look at that! I've got a picture of. Hang on a second. I'm going to pull this up.
Check it out, Bottles.
Yeah. Bear with me, folks. I've got a lot of stuff going on the screen right here. Oh, Lord. And there it is.
Oh.
That's another single that I bought. This was the gold. This was the, I talked about in the oldies section, they would have old songs that were hits on both sides. And Elektra Records had their own brand called Spun Gold. Now, if you bought the actual single release of this song, Killer Queen by Queen, it had a green background, like a split pea colored background, and it had a butterfly on the side and the Elektra logo on the other side. But this is from their Spun Gold series. I just found it online. I figure I'll put it from 1974, Killer Queen by Queen, written by Freddie Mercury.
The great Freddie Mercury. And the chorus in that song when they say Queen Killer that is headphone fodder. If you have a nice set of headphones, you've never heard that song, even if you have, put that on there and watch it bounce left to right when they do the track. It goes left to right when they do the Queen Killer chorus part. And you get in the right mode, maybe with a left-hand cigarette. Maybe not. It's whatever you choose. Yeah.
Sure.
You put that thing on, chill out, sit back, and you're like, oh, man, it's music gold is what that stuff is right there, man. That's these songs, and I not feel bad, but you can't replicate those sounds.
You can't.
No matter how hard you try, you can't replicate some of the sounds of some of the records back then that these guys produced. It's impossible. I don't think you can do it. And I think a lot of the equipment that they have in the studios that they use are gone. Some places still have them. but you can't replicate that sound, man.
Supposedly, Jeff Lynne, the brains behind ELO, in fact, he's the only active member from ELO. Jeff Lynne, he supposedly still records on a reel-to-reel, a multi-track reel-to-reel recorder.
Oh,
he's got the original one that he did all those albums on, and he still
so
uses it to this day. But that's what they did back in the day when they recorded Killer Queen. It was on reel-to-reel. It was on hard tape. And sometimes when they were doing Bohemian Rhapsody, they did overdubs so much on the actual reel-to-reel that they wore it out. Parts of the tape you could see through because all the oxide was gone. All the metal oxide was taken off the tape. But when they did this, and I'll read you what Freddie said about this song from back in 1974. He said, "People are used to hard rock energy music from Queen. Yet with this single, you could almost expect Noel Coward to sing it. It's one of those bowler hat, black suspender belt numbers with a little black bow tie, and you're doing a little dance with a cane. One of those kind of things. Not that Coward would wear that," he said. "It's about a high-class call girl. I'm trying to say that classy people can be whores as well. That's what this song's about, though I prefer people to put their own interpretation upon it, to read into it what they like." And it was ear candy, man, like you said. The vocals would like phase shift almost from the right to the left. Yes. Then the guitars would come in with little arpeggios from the sides and the different tones and all that. And Brian May, the guitarist, and he was the only guitarist on these Queen on these Queen albums for that matter, except when John Deacon, the bass player, would occasionally play an acoustic guitar. But he had what's called the Bell effect, where he would harmonize with himself in the studio and with the overdubs and all that. And a lot of it was Thin Lizzy was a big progenitor of that. They remember, like, the Boys Are Back in Town. They would do the harmony guitars, and then Boston picked that up too. And just about all their recordings, there was always harmony guitar leads with Boston.
There was a time when I was younger, when I first heard Queen, I thought they had two guitar players. One, because of the tone of Brian May's guitar, and two, when he did the solos, the overdubbing they did to match it up. Does that make sense? And so
absolutely,
I thought they had two guitar players, and then I saw, it was a video. I can't remember what it was, but I saw a video where it was live concert footage, and I'm like, man, that's only one guitar player. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this guy's the shit. He's great.
Oh yeah, it's even better now. What
father built all his guitars, which is a cool fact.
There was an old fireplace in the house that they renovated, and they took all the wood framing out of the fireplace, and they used that wood to build the guitar, the cherry red. It was called the Red Special. That's what he referred to it as. And he was the electronics guy. His father was the woodworker. So he told his dad what he wanted for proper acoustics. It was almost built like a banjo. It was so round at the bottom. Yeah. And three pickups, 3 switches, one for each pickup. It was unheard of back then. Unheard of.
Very unique body on the guitar too. Very, similar but different, if that makes sense. It was like a cross. Guitars.
Would you think it's a cross between a Stratocaster and a Les Paul, a Gibson Les Paul?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it impressed me as.
Yep. Yes, sir.
It had the double cutouts around the neck, where the neck meant to meet the body, so he could, maneuver his fingers around. And another part of the Queen sound was he played with a farthing. It's like it would be like if he played with a quarter. It's got the little ridges on the end of it, and he would rub those ridges from the farthing down the neck, down the strings while he's playing guitar. That was his pick, and he still does that to this day. And if he wanted to do like an explosion, I think he would take the metal farthing and bang it down on one of the pickups that he had cranked up. But I'm no guitarist. I don't pretend to know. I only know what I read in Cream magazine and Rolling Stone. He was sick as a dog, by the way. He had hepatitis. Brian May did. He caught it, I think, on their second tour of America. While they were recording Killer Queen, he's laying in a little bungalow right by their studio. You could hear him doing it. And Brian said it was a turning point for them financially It was a song that best summed up our kind of music and a big hit. And we desperately needed it as a mark of something successful happening for us. Because they weren't making the bucks back then. They were getting screwed over by the record company and their manager.
Right.
And I was always happy with this song. The whole album was made in a very craftsman-like manner. The album was Sheer Heart Attack, if you remember that one.
Absolutely.
Great album. I still enjoy listening to it, he says, because there's a lot to listen to, but it never gets cluttered up. There's always space for all the little ideas that come through. And, of course, I like the solo with that 3-part section where each part has its own voice. Vintage Queen. The first time I heard Freddie playing that song, I was lying in my room in Rockfield. And that's a residential recording studio in Wales. A lot of these recording studios were like a condo with a recording studio attached to it. So he's laying in the bedroom of this condo listening to it. He was feeling very sick. After the first American tour, he had hepatitis and stomach problems he had to be operated on. So while he's convalescing, he's listening to all this. He couldn't wait to get out of bed to participate in it and put the guitars on it. And then when he got fixed up, he came out and he finished it off. They left some space for him to do the solo, and he really wanted to do the harmony bits in the chorus, which he did. And hey, a blend of rock and pop, vocal harmonies at the yin yang, and a honky tonk type piano, and
ultimate classic song, right there.
And went up to number 12 in the United States. It topped the charts
Beautiful.
Over in Great Britain. Yep,
beautiful.
Yep, one of the big glam rock hits, I guess you would call it, back in the day.
Sure.
Glam rock, where everybody wore the satin pants and they had maybe their hair piled high, a little bit of makeup, a little bit of lip gloss. Some of the guys did eyeliner, and very, very guitar-oriented music. Glam rock was. So yeah, what else you got? You got another one?
Singles, sure. I got another one that might surprise you. Toto, Hold the Line.
Great song.
Steve Lukather, one of my favorite guitar players, man. Very underrated. Does not get the credit he deserves, in my opinion, for guitar players nowadays. That man can craft a song left and right. The Becerra brothers, drum and keyboard players, God rest their soul, they're dead. But I loved Toto growing up. Loved it. And, of course, when, the 80s, we had roller skate rinks. And when the song Africa came out, it was like the chick skate with the dude, 5th grade, 4th grade stuff. Woo! You heard that song. And to this day, I hear that song and I think about roller skating at the skate land in Klamath Falls, Oregon, with some of the girls that I hung out with at school. But Toto, that was up. Hold the
Now
Line
that was her first. That was her first single.
Yes.
Hold the Line.
Yes.
And that was the only single they had where Bobby Kimball sang lead for the entire song. Usually, Lukather and Bobby Kimball would split the vocal duties.
Right.
Like Rosanna, Lukather would start it off. Because Lukather is the guy who dated Rosanna Arquette, who the song was about. The actress Rosanna Arquette.
Did everybody hear that? That was brilliant knowledge. Seriously, that's awesome. I had no idea, Bottle.
Yeah, he wrote that song about her. He was dating her at the time.
That's
and
awesome.
Kimball would come in and do the high parts, the power vocals on the choruses and all that, and the louder verses. Lukather was the guy who sang like this in the beginning of the song.
Right.
All I want to do is hold your eyes. He was that guy who sang that part. And then when he needed a loud, when the music really amped up, the great Bobby Kimball, who's not doing well right now, he would come in. And he was the guy saying the high parts on Africa on the chorus. That was sung by. Good Lord, where'd I go to school? That was sung by. I got my tenses all effed up. That was sung by 3 guys from Toto: the keyboard player, Lukather, and Bobby Kimball. The song Africa. Bobby Kimball knocked it out of the park with the high harmonies and the high parts. Bobby Kimball's unfortunately suffering from dementia right now. That's the rumor going around. And he's not recording. He's not doing anything. He was trying to do shows.
Pipes too. Great set of pipes, that man.
Yeah.
That brings me to another thing as far as vocals. Back then, you know as well as I do, you could hear a Foreigner song. You could hear a Journey song. You could hear a Loverboy song. You could hear a Led Zeppelin song. the differences between these Toto, same way, Kimball. You could hear the differences, and you knew immediately who it was.
When you're listening to it on the shittiest of radios, even on the AM radio, which they had back then in cars.
Yep.
Music was played on the AM radio band, and a lot of top 40 stations on there. You would hear like you just said, any one of those vocalists, and you know right away who it is.
Oh, dude, exactly. As soon as you hear it, you know who the band is. It's, and I'm not knocking music today like we knock modern wrestling, but there's a lot of modern music that has that's transcended over the last 20 years, that everything sounds the same. Everybody starts to sound the same. Now, there's some individuals, you can pick them out. You can pick new people out. Yeah, absolutely. It's not like there's nobody you can't say, oh, that's, J-Lo or whatever. But back then, you heard a song, you knew immediately who it was if you were a music fan. And like you, I got it the same way. Very early on, I got exposed to music thanks to my father, thanks to my mother, and thanks to my Uncle Dude, God rest his soul. They got me into the music, and Bachman Turner Overdrive, the Doobie Brothers, Kansas. It's just immediately, once you started listening to those songs and got a pattern, pretty soon you had your little catalog in your head of who these guys were. Oh, that's so-and-so, or that's so-and-so. Nowadays, my son will come and play these songs, and I'm like, he's a kid. He's a freshman in high school. And I like modern music, some. Yeah, sure. There's a lot of good, especially metal, of course. Larry, what's up? And but he'll play these songs, and I'm like, that just sounded like the other person. Who's this? I'm like, is that the same person? He'll go, no, that's so-and-so. I'm like, well, it sounded just like the other guy.
Right. You're exactly right. Dude, there's nothing like driving down the road in 1979 when you're a kid. And you just got your car, and you're barreling down the road, and you're listening to Point of No Return by Kansas. And when that's over, it segues into Peace of Mind by Boston. Then it segues into Run Like Hell by Pink Floyd. Then you got Sweet Home Alabama. Sweet Home Alabama. And then the DJ's got to go to the bathroom, drop a deuce, run over to the microwave, throw a piece of pizza in, or I don't think they had microwaves back then, did they? No, I don't think they did. I think I'd probably throw it in the toaster oven.
Late 70s, yeah, we had toaster ovens when we were growing up. We had the little
I think he threw it into, he probably threw that burrito in the toaster oven while he's dropping a deuce. Then he came out and grabbed his soda and his burrito and ran back while Yes Roundabout was playing.
Oh, one of the greatest bass riffs of all time, in my opinion. Just listen to that damn bass riff, but flawless, awesome, perfect. If you haven't listened to it, give it a try.
That's right. Exactly right. My youngest daughter didn't know anything about this kind of music. She was Taylor Swift. She was Billie Eilish, as I call her, Billie Eyelash. And she used to listen to all that crap. And then we had an Amazon Alexa in the house, and I was playing all kinds of music one day. And she goes, "What is this stuff you're listening to?" And I said, "This is music I grew up with." And I played, what was it? I played Radio Gaga by Queen. And she goes, "I know this song. I love this song." The kids know Queen, believe it or not. It still gets played today on a lot of, not pop radio stations, but on rock stations.
You think?
No, this was before the movie. This is way before the movie. She was like 11 years old. She was 11, 12 years old when I started playing this kind of music in the house. I said, "Here's one for you." I said to Alexa, "Alexa, play You Baby by the Turtles." Group from the 60s, a harmony group from the 60s who backed up Frank Zappa. They sang backup for Zappa and on a lot of his albums, and Mothers of Invention. And they also sang backup, the guys from the Turtles sang the backing vocals on Hungry Heart by Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. But anyway, I digress. She goes, "This song's great. Play another one." I said, "Here's one I know you've heard. Played her Happy Together by the Turtles." Then we did Taking Care of Business by Bachman Turner Overdrive. And then we did I Think I Love You by the Partridge Family. She goes, you know what? I got to do a little research into this. So she goes to her bedroom, and she's on the phone, taking over the world. As I always say, you're on your phone taking over the planet. She's researching on iTunes all these songs, and she's downloaded them to her phone.
Nice.
I played her Go All the Way by the Raspberries, and
another good one.
She started dancing around the room to it. She said, what album is this on? I said, it's on the Raspberries, their first album. When did it come out, last year? I said, no, it came out in 1971, I believe. What? I said, you know the guy who sang that song, Hungry Eyes? Because the kids all know Dirty Dancing. They've all seen that movie.
My God.
Hungry Eyes, yeah, I love that song. Well, this is the same guy. No, it's not. I said, it's the same guy. Look him up.
Yes, it is.
Same guy. So music is generational. It really is. You have to expose your kids to the classics, to the artist. We got some more comments here. Donnie Graves. Modern music is garbled shit mainly today. That's why the artists that can actually sing stand out, even if the song is junk. You are correct, my young friend.
Point, dude.
You are correct.
Straight up.
Those who cannot sing, the ones who can't sing, it's all minor chords and minor notes that they can work their way around, and where it's not a lot of vocal gymnastics. Auto-tune can't give you vocal gymnastics. It can't substitute wind, the expulsion of sound from your voice, whether it's loud. Auto-tune cannot affect that. It just keeps you in pitch. Here's another one from Larry. Very few artists that came out in the last decade or so I listened to. So
with you, man.
He's right. You're exactly right, Larry. It's sad, but yeah, you're exactly right.
I call it cookie cutter rock.
Cookie cutter rock.
Flavor of the month. Back when we were growing up, you had magazines, you had newspapers, you had the occasional TV show on a Sunday or a Saturday, and then you had the radio. And that was it. That's how you followed your bands. And I remember reading magazines sometimes cover to cover 4 and 5 times just to retain the information. Nowadays, it's well, not even just nowadays. I've seen this trend for several years now. It's all flavor of the month.
You're right.
In certain genres, it's even worse than it is in just pop radio. But it's, these guys are cool now. Okay, no, now they're not. Okay, case in point. Gundam Style. How about that one?
Gangnam Style. That guy he's faded into obscurity.
Mm-hmm.
Psy.
Psy. That's his name. Yep.
Yeah. That was a great tune, though. I didn't understand what he was singing about.
It was a great tune. They were catchy songs, and that's why they had. You go to Spotify or some of those other sites, and you see how many people listen to it monthly because, hey, it's a great song. Regardless if they wrote it or somebody else did, they produced it, put it out there, sold records, made money. Good for them. Good for them. But when we were growing up, it was hardcore. Like, you couldn't wear, a Triumph or a Rush shirt at school or Cheap Trick shirt unless you knew who they were. And if some of the older classmen came up and said, hey, man, what's your favorite song? What's your favorite album?
You better have an answer.
You better have an answer because they'll take the shirt away from you. And that happened. That, for real. I saw it happen. Thank God I got into music when I did because I had friends that lost their shirts from upperclassmen because they wore a shirt to school back then and didn't know who, especially when metal hit in the new wave of British heavy metal, late 70s, early 80s, when that floodgate opened and people started wearing Saxon shirts and Iron Maiden shirts, and Merciful Fate. And you better know who they are because the older guys that hung out by the weight shed and smoked dope, and got F's all over the place in school, those guys would come up and you say, hey, dude, what's your favorite album? And if you didn't answer them, A, you got your ass kicked, or B, you got your shirt stolen, or C, both. True story, fellas.
That's true. You're exactly right. I remember those good old days, man.
Now, Bob,
when a band like Cheap Trick would come out, and they didn't hit it big yet. but you played them all the time. And you reference their songs to people, and people would say, "What song is it? What are you talking about? What is it? Surrender? What?" And they say, "Hey, it's a group called Cheap Trick. You got to check them out." And then back in the day, what made it really, really great before MTV, you hardly ever saw these bands. You'd have to see them with the Midnight Special on Friday nights on NBC at 1 a.m. after Carson. You'd have to see them on the Midnight Special or American Bandstand. Even though you saw them on there and they would lip sync, 9 times out of 10, I keep saying that, saying that phrase. It's a verbal crutch of mine, but 9 times out of 10, if you saw a band on Bandstand, it was all lip synced. They never actually sang live or performed live. True. But hey, at least you're seeing a Cheap Trick on Bandstand, which was it was crazy. But that's the only way you can see a band nowadays. Or if you turned on Carson occasionally would have on a notable rock band like ZZ Top or somebody like that who was hot at the time, or a variety show. Remember those variety shows they used to have?
Oh, of course.
Yes, of course. Which is a shame they don't have those things nowadays. But be that as it may,
forward to seeing those shows, man.
My friend Ricky Linton, who's coming down from Maryland to spend a few days with me
Johnny,
next week. Johnny, get my room ready. And I'm in his room right now. So, buddy, we're going to clean this thing out if you're watching.
Right
so the studio will be decimated for a time while you're here. Let's see who else we got. This is Larry. I know people who only know Queen from Wayne's World.
True. That's true.
Hey,
good point, Larry. Yep.
That movie introduced the music of Queen to a lot of kids who didn't know who they were. And I think that's just freaking fantastic.
They had Mike Myers in there, and he has it in Bohemian Rhapsody movie. He has that quote. He says, I can't see people driving down the boulevard listening to this song, banging their heads." And that was Wayne. You know, it was 2 different movies, 2 different genres, 2 different times. But I thought that part was really cool when he said that because it happened. It's like, yeah, come on, Wayne. You know, it totally happened. Yeah, great. Good job, Larry. Great point, bud.
He's talking about the thing with the T-shirt. See that happen, Motor, a lot of times in the 80s and 90s. They'd take that shirt right off you.
People took that stuff seriously. And, you know, thank God, like my kids, both of them, my daughter, my son, and my stepdaughter, they basically bequeathed, I gave them all my metal T-shirts and stuff because I can't wear them anymore because they're too small. But I told them, I said, look, if you're going to wear the shirt, you better know an album, a song, and listen to the band, or I'm not giving it to you. So they did. And I'm so thankful that my stepdaughter, my son, and my daughter Shelby's my road dog. I started taking her to concerts at 14 years old because she wanted to go. Her first concert was Slipknot and Marilyn Manson at 14. And that was it. She was hooked after that. But she knows concert etiquette, which you know as well, Bottles. Concert etiquette is an actual thing, how to conduct yourself at shows. And she knows the fact, and all my kids do, you wear that shirt, you better know the band. You better know somebody in the band, and you better know a song.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do we got here? We've got Donnie Graves. I usually see Cheap Tricks downtown.
Well,
hey, baby, $20, I make you holler.
20. Oh, you so horny? How much? 50 make you 50.
Me love you long time. Donnie Graves taking down the quality of a podcast once again with his foul mouth.
God,
love you, Don. Love you, Don.
Yep, excellent.
All right, here's I picked 3 singles, and here's my 3rd single.
Go for it.
The 3rd single that I bought was
Hit it.
Surfer Girl by the Beach Boys.
Oh, one of my dad's favorite songs, Bottles.
I pulled that out of the oldies section of the 45 rack. It was backed up with Little Deuce Coupe, which I didn't realize it was released that way. Surfer Girl, and the actual B-side was Little Deuce Coupe. And the DJs flipped it over to play the B-side. They were both top 10 hits.
Nice.
Both songs were, which is just, it blew my mind. He wrote that song in 63. And no, I take it back. He wrote it in 61. He was 19 years old. And it was inspired by his first serious girlfriend he dated for 3.5 years, Judy Bowles. And this is a guy who never went surfing, but she did. And he was driving down Judy Bowles. He was driving to a hot dog stand, which where all the kids hung out. And he was actually thinking of the melody in his head because he was just tapping on the dashboard, sang it to himself, didn't sing it out real loud. And when he got home, he wrote the bridge to it, he wrote the chorus, and put the whole thing together, and wrote out the harmonies, because he's a musical savant, Brian Wilson was.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
He came up with Surfer Girl. And it was based on a song by another name we mentioned earlier, Dion, from Dion and the Belmonts. They did a version of the Disney song from Pinocchio, When You Wish Upon a Star, which has the same A, B, A chords to it. And that was his own version of, his own melody of When You Wish Upon a Star, and he called it Surfer Girl. But what I liked about that was I got the stereo mix, which is on the 45, not the mono version. They released two versions. Kids, they had mono albums and records, and they had stereo albums and records back in the day, simultaneously on the shelves.
Huge difference sound-wise, Mr. Bottles.
Yes, sir.
Huge difference. Mm-hmm.
And did you know that in the days of AM radio and FM radio, they would do an FM stereo mix of a single, and they would do an AM mono mix of a single. And I learned this from, I believe the guy's name was Ken Calais. He was a producer and engineer on Fleetwood Mac and Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. This is 76 to 79. And what they did was, like I just said, they would do, like, Over My Head. They would do a mono mix, and they would do a stereo mix for the FM stations. It's funny that they had to do that. They don't do it nowadays, though. That's all in the past. They don't do that nowadays.
Oh, yeah. You know,
but I like the harmonies of the Beach Boys, where it would, like, if you had the headphones on, it would flow back and forth. You hear a Mike Love's bass vocals here. You would hear Al Jardine and Carl over here. Then you would hear Dennis come in with Mike, because he had a deeper voice, and the falsetto would be like right in the middle. It was fantastic.
Very smooth. Very
just the way I like. The reason why I like Queen's albums in 45s.
Same.
Because everything was moving all around.
Yes, sir.
Moving around your headspace.
Yes. Well, Bottles, what else you got? Are we going to end it right now? Let's wait till the next one and see how this one does.
What would you like to do, sir? You tell me.
I'm gonna ask you one more question.
Yes.
And then we can roll this up. One more question.
Yes, sir.
With a couple parts. Number one,
okay. Mm-hmm.
The first LP you ever bought. Number two, the first cassette you ever bought. I know.
I got it. I got the answer. I've got the answer.
Oh, first, let's go, baby.
The first cassette that I ever bought was a cassette version of Meet the Beatles.
Nice.
And because the songs were so short. One side was Meet the Beatles, and another Beatles album was on the other side. But I can't recall what the other one was on the flip side of that.
Copy that.
And the first album the first full album I ever bought was the Boston album. That had the guitar Spaceship right in front and center, More Than a Feeling, Long Time, Peace of Mind, Something About You, Let Me Take You Home Tonight, Foreplay. What a
amazing. And you can still put it on today.
I almost dropped the F-bomb. What a great album.
Let it go. Yep, exactly.
What a great album.
You gotta love it. And I think next week we will touch on the demise of rec stores and how much of a shitter that was when we were kids, but then they came back. And we were always discussing, we talked to Don earlier about bringing up some subjects such as some of the most influential bands of all time for every genre of music. So this was cool.
Wait, hang on a second. Listen, look at this.
Oh, let's see.
Ron said mine was Toys in the Attic cassette and mine was Toys in the Attic and the cassette was U2 Sunday Bloody Sunday. That's how Ron answered. And then you got this guy. Boxcar Willie, first LP.
Oh, he said, yep, he said that it was Boxcar Willie. That's right. Oh, Don, he said Boxcar Willie. I'm like, yeah, I remember that song when I was a kid. Hell yes.
Do you remember? I know we talked about this on the phone one day. You remember when 7-Eleven sold albums?
Oh, yes. 7-Eleven,
K-Tel albums, and the albums that you...
Best.
When you saw the infomercials on TV for albums,
yeah.
Slim Whitman, Boxcar Willie, that's how he became famous. Those guys had albums set up on cardboard displays in the goddamn 7-Elevens. Because I bought one. I used to buy K-Tel Music Power was the first K-Tel album I ever bought. I think it had Taking Care of Business on it. It had a Procol Harum song. Water Shade of Pale. Water Shade of Pale was on it.
Oh,
and some obscure Yes song.
Nice.
And a ton of shit on there.
K-Tel was amazing because the variety. Like I cut my teeth on K-Tel records.
Yeah.
Don't even come with an AM radio station, I believe. Yep, you're exactly
He's right about that. He's right about that. Yeah. Now it's satellite. They want you to subscribe to satellite when you buy a new car now.
Yep.
Oh, Larry's referring to the Boston LP. Yeah, Bottles classic album cover. It's going to be sad when Tom Schultz finally kicks the bucket.
He ain't doing too well either. He hasn't been for a while. So.
Oh, he hasn't been?
No. If you look it up, he's had some. He's always been skinny. No, he's really. If you look at pictures now, geez, Louise, the guy. If he's 110 pounds. I'll slap your uncle in the face.
Yeah, he's pushing 80 now. He's pushing 80. Yeah. Still a great guitarist. I don't know about songwriting anymore because Brad Delp, the late vocalist from Boston, wrote a lot of those songs with him.
And
so did Barry Goudreau.
Sid Hashian had the best afro in the world for a rock drummer. If you look at the back of the Boston covers and then watch some of the videos, that man had a goddamn chia pet on his head that was phenomenal. I wish to God I could grow his hair. God damn it.
Great drummer back then. Really liked his work. He wasn't too showy. He stayed in the background, but he had the backbeat. He kept things moving along. And if you're a wrestling fan out there, here's a trivia fact that I dropped a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you remember this or not. Sib Hashian, the drummer with the fro from Boston, was for a brief moment of time the father-in-law of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Right. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson married his second wife was Sib Hashian's daughter. Yep. And Sib actually, he met The Rock. They got along famously for a couple of years. But Sib died of a heart attack on one of those rock and roll cruises where it was like an all-star band of all these journeyman musicians that backed up some famous vocalists, and Sib was the drummer. And he didn't feel good, and he collapsed in the middle of the set and died on the cruise ship.
Yes, sir.
The late, great Sib Hashian. That's a shame.
Amazing drummer, amazing hair. And Mr. Bottles, take us to the promised land, and let's rock and roll out of here.
I think we're going to do this, folks. I think we're going to do this every week. If that's okay with you, Motorhead. You're the boss.
Yes, we are.
Just checking with you. We will do this shit every week until they throw us off of YouTube. So, guys, we appreciate it. If you like what you see, if you're the first time viewer of the Squared Circle Maniacs channel, we just don't do wrestling here. We do football. We do classic rock, as you can see now. And we don't get into politics here. We don't do all that stuff. It's just fun stuff that we talk about. Entertainment. Things that float our boats, our collective boats, as they say. Let's kick it, Motor. Motor, what were you going to say? I jumped the gun with the end. Go ahead, say.
No, it's fine. Hey, dude, that was cool. Good job.
We're still in the air. We haven't stopped. We're still in the air. I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, what I was going to say is stay tuned, people, because next week we're going to have a lot more information on this. And I already talked to some of the guys in the group, and we're going to have some guests, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. That's what I was going to say last. But other than that,
oh, shit.
What happened?
I almost knocked over my Cavassier. I mean, my water.
Don't do that.
As Dusty Rhodes used to say on WCW Saturday night. He knocked over my Cavassier. I mean, my water. All right, Motor. We're out the door, baby.